Even getting out of bed in the morning is thrilling in my home. I roll out of bed and plummet to the net below. Bouncing on it wakes me up, so I can climb the remaining 50 feet of rope and silk and finally land safe and sound on the ground, only to find myself surrounded by lions. Want to see more crazy stories like this one? Show us some love by hitting those like and subscribe buttons below. But wait, before I go on, I have a huge announcement to make. Storytime Animated is doing a massive giveaway for our awesome viewers. This week, we'll be giving away, drumroll please, an Apple laptop. If you want a chance at winning, you must be subscribed to the channel, like this video, and share this video with 3 friends. Then, lastly, leave a comment below on how long have you been watching us? That's all. Check the description for more information. And now, back to the story. I usually spend my days running from one place to another, and that day was no different. I'm always delivering wigs, carrying sacks of peanuts, and helping set up the food stands. But it's worth it, especially for that night. That night, our circus was in that city for the first time ever. Here's the wig you asked for, Mom, I said as I walked through the beads on my parents' tent entrance.
Thanks, Pumpkin,
she said. She was sitting at her vanity doing her makeup. I could tell something was off, because her hand was shaking as she applied lipstick. I was about to ask what was wrong when my dad strutted in. He was getting ready for the show by lifting his huge weights. He put them down and his arms were shaking. Kidding weak, aren't you? I laughed.
Watch who you call weak, kid,
he grumbled. My dad was super strong, though. I mean, that was his whole act, so I didn't know why he was shaking. Are you guys okay? You both seem nervous, I said to my parents.
We're fine, sweetie. Go finish getting ready for the show,
said my mom. As I was leaving, I turned around and saw my dad rubbing Mom's shoulders and whispering. I stood behind the heavy curtains hiding from the audience. With a loud bang on the drums, most of the lights went out, except one spotlight. I rolled into view for the audience on an enormous ball. Ladies and gentlemen, I exclaimed as I rolled around the stage. It's my honor to present. There was a drum roll, then all the lights turned on, revealing everyone in our circus. Fantasy Circus! The audience went wild. As the ringmaster, it was my job to get the show started, but after that, I only had one routine. From backstage, I watched my parents work their magic. I was a little worried because they seemed on edge, but the routine went perfectly. My mom pretended she fainted while on the trapeze, only to fall into my dad's arms and be juggled like a ball. The music changed to something more exciting. The spotlight was the only light on again. I walked into it calmly. Ladies and gentlemen, what would you do if you were faced with a beast? I asked the audience. A beast so powerful, it could tear you to shreds, I exclaimed. When I felt like I could cut the tension with a knife, the lights then turned on fully, revealing 2 huge cages at my sides, full of lions. Dearest audience, I do ask you to keep your screaming to a minimum. I may be strong, but even I may be powerless if these beasts become agitated, I explained in mock concern. I threw smoke bombs in front of the cage doors, and when the smoke dissipated, the doors were open and the lions were free. To the audience, I looked terrified. I acted as if I was trying to find an escape. The lions were preparing to charge at me, leaving a gap in their circle. A rope dropped down, so I ran to grab it and swung over the audience. The lions came chasing after me. I was focused on my act when I got distracted by some members of the audience. It was a couple with a kid, but the kid looked like me. My grip on the rope loosened. I tried to grab it again, but I couldn't, and I was falling into a pack of lions. They all had their mouths open too, a dozen fangs just waiting to snatch me up. The crowd gasped as I fell. I thought I was for sure about to break a few bones when my fall was cushioned. Good boy, Rocky, I whispered to my favorite lion after he caught me. He jumped up on the cages and leapt over the rest of the lions with me sitting on his back. The audience cheered and gasped. I stood on Rocky's head and bowed before taking my lions backstage. Everyone backstage crowded me at once, asking if I was okay. They all saw how my hand slipped and thought I was in danger. I realized my parents weren't there, pinching my cheeks and scolding me about not being careful enough. I saw that they were looking through a little gap in the curtains leading to the stage. My dad was rubbing my mom's back, as if to calm her down. I expected a sleepless night from the excitement, but I was tossing and turning with this weird feeling in my gut. For some reason, I kept thinking about that kid I saw. That kid looked exactly like me, maybe around 10 years younger. I knew I was adopted because my parents and I looked nothing alike. Could that kid and I be related? I climbed out of bed and snuck past all the sleeping animals toward my parents' tent. Guys, I saw this couple with a kid at the show and I began, before my dad burst out crying out of nowhere. My parents were both sitting at the edge of their bed when I walked in. My dad was trying to explain something between sobs while my mom tried to calm him down.
We were scared that you would see them.
My dad managed to say. My mom saw how confused I looked inside. She stood up and took a book out of a nearby trunk. She started flipping through it. It was a photo album full of pictures of our big circus family, as well as me growing up. She finally found what she was looking for, a picture of the first day I met my parents. I had seen it 1,000 times, but she had never taken it out of the album like she did then. She handed the picture to me, and I realized it was folded in half. I unfolded it, and it revealed that little me was standing between my parents and the couple I saw in the audience. They looked annoyed.
They're your original parents.
My mom said. I looked up from the picture to find her teary-eyed.
We never wanted you to know how.
My dad trailed off. I asked them to know how what? They hesitated, but once they explained, I understood. I also wouldn't have told myself my biological parents sold me.
They didn't exactly sell you. You were throwing a tantrum and they were annoyed, so they left you,
said my mom, trying to soften the blow. But they still made money from leaving me. The former owner of the circus insisted on giving them something for me, and they decided they wanted some cash. I ran to my room after the revelation. I could feel this pang of pain in my heart. I was devastated. I always thought my biological parents just couldn't raise me for some reason, like other adopted kids' parents, but mine just didn't want me. But I could see them so vividly, laughing with this kid who looked just like me. Why him but not me? How did they love my little brother but have no love for me? I needed answers. My parents being the current owners of the circus had some perks. The ticket lady gave me all the information about the people in the specific seat and row I asked her about. You know, for child abandoners, they were really active in their kids' school community. At least, that's what their social media wanted me to think. So now I knew which school their kid went to, and phase 2 of my plan could begin. I strolled up to this middle school with a huge group of clowns. Literally. Apparently, it's too dangerous to bring lions and elephants to a school. So for the circus promotion, all the school wanted from us was clowns. Pretty lame if you ask me. I excused myself to go to the bathroom. The halls were empty, so sneaking into the office and peeking at some private information was no issue. People really ought to be more careful with their information. Imagine if I was some lunatic. Anyways, now all I had to do was break into my horrible biological parents' house while I knew they were out because I had their schedules memorized. Their house wasn't what I expected. It looked like a kid had decorated it, but in a good way. It was full of color, fun furniture, and there were kids' drawings all over. There was a huge bookcase full of children's books, but in the center of it, there was a thick book on a pedestal. When I opened it, the anger that had been simmering in me suddenly disappeared. It was full of pictures of my little brother growing up, and my, or should I say his, parents were everywhere, smiling, laughing, decorating the house to his taste. I thought, maybe they're not that bad. They seem to really love him. With a warm feeling in my chest, I was about to leave, until I spotted a dusty, old book being used to level the bookcase. I managed to pull it out, and found it was another photo album, but it was empty. Empty except for the first few pages, which were of me. In the pictures with me, the house in the background looked gray. My parents looked annoyed, and it seemed I was desperately trying to bring some color into the house. I didn't know if I felt angry or heartbroken. My little brother was, and is, just like me, but they didn't give him up. Why did they leave me? I composed myself. Then I blew the whistle in my pocket. Time for phase 3. When the front door opened hours later, I was waiting. I heard 3 gasps, then laughter, but only from one person. My little brother ran into the room, which must have looked different from what he was used to, because it was now covered in paint, confetti, and balloons.
Lion Girl!
He exclaimed. That's when our, or his, parents ran into the room.
I'm Micah,
said my brother. Hi, Micah, I said, before looking straight at his parents and saying, I'm your sister, Leona. The look of horror on their faces was priceless.
What did you do to our house?
Asked the woman who was supposed to be my mother. Micah ran upstairs, probably to see what I had done to his room. Did you think I would never find you, or find out the truth? I asked the couple. I demanded an explanation. The couple started shaking nervously.
We felt bad after what we did,
The man began.
but we want to do better the second time around.
He continued as if it made complete sense. Yeah, mess up your first kid, you can do better next time. I yelled at them. I couldn't bear to look at them anymore, so I left. But I left Micah with them, and that didn't sit right with me. The circus was already on the highway on its way to the next city when I told my parents to stop our fleet of trucks. I can't leave Micah. What if they hurt him? I reasoned with them. My dad thrust some car keys into my hand and told me to hurry up. Circuses are incapable of having normal cars, though. I was so embarrassed driving through the city in a clown car. I barely fit. When I got to the lunatic's house, it was dark already. I parked right next to Micah's window and tapped on it. He opened it, groggy from sleep.
Leona?
He asked, rubbing his eyes. Do you know anyone who might be interested in joining a circus, kid? I asked him nonchalantly. The way his face lit up told me I was doing the right thing. He zoomed around his room, stuffing random things in a bunch of backpacks and throwing them into the tiny car. Micah was climbing into the car when his door burst open and his parents ran into the room, shouting to let their son go. How can your abandoned daughter trust you with her little brother? I yelled as I put the car in reverse. You don't deserve kids like us, I shouted before speeding away.
Where are we going?
Micah asked me. I smiled and told him we were going home, where there's a show every single night. Micah talked on and on about all the cool circus things he wanted to learn, and I couldn't help but laugh. It was crazy seeing how alike we are.